Hey there, good morning. As I adjust and get things set right in place, I just wanted to take it upon myself to just talk about some things this morning. I speak upon, of course, the Book of Love. Now, oftentimes things can go as expected, anticipated, or not at all. And it is up to us to determine what we think and feel about that and what we want to do about that going forth. So on September 11th, for me, this is a day of remembrance. And with so much within the Book of Love that we need to be speaking to one another, it's just very hard in my heart. It's difficult whenever we speak on good acts, but then they're done without really thinking and reflecting upon the result of action. So earlier I was trying to record on my phone. And of course, I kept getting error after error after error, and it just wasn't going to cooperate at all, regardless of what I did. So let me see if I can get this to pull up here. Oh, hold on. I welcome you to join me as we talk about a few passages from the Book of Falsehoods. I'm trying to get that better reflection. This is, of course, in fictitious manner and not actually something that exists. However, this is within the heart of a lot of different fashions in the world. The ones that speak on truth and love and kindness, but then do so within greed or acts of power. Those who speak upon the word as in acts of humility and compassion, but indeed are that of separation and ego. So within the Book of Falsehoods, our first passage takes us back to the time of Jesus as he is speaking to the people on the Mount. Yea, for all who have joined me today, I will take this bread and I will multiply it by none. For you are not worthy. I will take of this wine and I will drink it by myself. Because thy blood spilled for you is not worthy to walk within the kingdom of God. This bushel here that has been brought and gathered will be enjoyed by only those who are worthy. So pick up thy rod and thy staff and walk with me. But only if you hurt your neighbor. Only if you condemn one another. You may taketh of the bread and wine and of the fish, only if you condemn your brother who loves your brother, and your sister who loves your sister. As we are all children of God, and you can only get into the kingdom of heaven by condemning one another. Yeah, that doesn't quite set, does it? That's why Jesus never spoke of condemning one another. To be able to take sides, he loved all people genuinely, compassionately. So whenever we offer words of wisdom or support, why should we have to identify where we align spiritually or politically? So I wanted to share that because With my fibromyalgia, it can be very difficult for me to remember everything that I wanted to say before, and that can be a challenge. And basically, within the Book of Falsehoods, we are talking about things about the condemning of people just because they don't look like us, talk like us, act like us, or believe the things that we do in um, that are of good nature and built upon a firm foundation. I remember the day that 9/11 happened, and the first tower was struck. My son reminded me that of that today, as he wants, of course, to honor that and to talk about everything, um, to honor the lives lost, and to help us learn from our past and our history. And this is not something that we should fear, but only if that fear becomes within our current and our reality, which in the path that we are now currently living, it very much could be. When the second tower was struck, I was beside myself. I was watching live on the television, realizing that I had to go into work that day. I worked at a portrait studio and out of a mall that was still in construction. And of course, as the news media cycles like to perpetuate at times, the fear driven in one another that what could happen, what possibly could be. I have a one person, not even put together area. So the thing is that to be able to put my voice out there, I know that I need to be flexible to be able to do so at any given time. And it doesn't really matter where I am other than my voice is heard. And I'm not going to be well put together like other people. Therefore, my content might not be as interesting or well received. The thing is that within the motions of life, I go forth. Whenever I think back to that current time in my life, mm, it was just brutal. Do you think that the people who are being rescued were like, "Oh no, no, I can't rescue you. You're one of those Dems. Oh, you are a far right Republican conservative. I can't. No, sorry. You believe that people who love one another, who are homosexual, shall burn in hell. Therefore, I will not rescue you." No, the people that day did not have those thoughts. They did not have the message of distancing themselves from one another. No, they went forth and they helped one another. Or perhaps there was a person who was under some rubble and it was burning. Do you think a person thought, "Oh, it's one of those trans people. We'll let them burn anyway because they're going to burn in hell"? No, people did not think that or feel that. Now, of course, I am not one to perceive and to say I know all because I definitely do not. But people were not having those knee-jerk feelings. I don't believe they were. I think that they were I feel like they were thinking, "Let's help save one another. Let's get you out of there. Let's get you safe. Let's get you home." Whenever tears were shed after the loss of so many, do you think they were thinking, "Oh, good, because those were those illegal migrants anyway. Those were those immigrants. Those were those illegals who came into our country." All the people who were in that building were obviously of the gay persuasion. Our brothers and sisters on the rainbow, we are all connected, and we should be there for one another. What we identify as, and by the way, that is, we identify as either a, say, heterosexual, homosexual, we identify as Democrat, Republican, we identify as conservative, liberal, we identify as a humanitarian, or we identify as someone of wealth or someone who is poor. There is identity representation for each area. Why are we putting so much heavy gravity upon one area of people's lives that has nothing ultimately to do with ourselves other than to further separation? When we speak within the book of love, we do not look at all those things to create barriers, but we actually take a bridge and we build a firm foundation based upon a wonderful, diverse group of individuals who are beautifully unique, all to themselves. We create opportunities that actually mend the wounds of the past. And we include all people regardless. Those are speaking within the lines of Jesus and within the lines of our spiritual and religious leaders that have come before us, those who are admirable people to look up to. That of Albert Einstein and Socrates, the great thinkers of our time. Whenever the original book was written, and then this, of course, was two different colleagues who had worked together. They had started writing the work of a complete Bible, by the way, Old Testament and New Testament, and one had passed, and then the other had finished. So at the date of oh, hold on, I believe it's 1535. And then at 1560, it was, I guess, revised. So that was basically the complete works of the Bible. And then in 1599, now that was its first revision, so to speak. So we're talking about taking some books out, others in. But then, wouldn't you know it, that King James the First, yeah, I guess that wasn't jiving with him because he decided to take things and rearrange them. You know, ugh, how dare that Bible and that Jesus speak of being there for all people, feeding all people, being there to help clothe the needy, to feed the hungry, to heal the sick and the injured, to sit and listen to thy neighbor. How dare that woke immigrant be there for all people? Because clearly that is not what some people's version of Jesus and God must be, because that is within the Book of Falsehoods. I feel like we speak more within the Book of Falsehoods than we actually do within the Book of Love, because if we did speak and act within the Book of Love, we would not have these fights. We would not have these wars, and we would have more of a actual representation of equality. The reason why we perpetually keep repeating our history, rewriting it, revising it, it's almost like a power struggle. Why on earth are we lifting people up who represent us, the people, by the people, for the people, who we aren't happy with? Why are we choosing a one way that is more of a narrow viewed look on life, when if there's so much more that we can offer one another? Truth be told, by listening to the people who are around us, we have created a division within what is. And it's not great. We need to do better and be better. And within the book of love, we are actually genuinely there for one another. We grieve for one another. We sit with one another, and we don't discriminate upon one another just because of the way we dress, the who we love, and how we spiritually live our lives or don't spiritually live our lives or otherwise. As long as it's done within the book of love, then you are walking the way that you need to. You are living within the mission. You are living proof that people like Jesus actually existed within the world. And that what has been written within texts is actually factual. When we actually go forth within the Book of Falsehoods, that is where things start to get skewed. We listen more to our media and to those of wealth and power and position rather than listening to those who are the most needy, the most vulnerable, the most knowledgeable people that you will ever meet, who have walked within the longest of roads and had the most difficult of troubles. Those people are the ones that we should admire and look up to because they have worlds of knowledge. Let us not discriminate and push and set those people aside and say that they will burn within the gates of hell because they are deemed as not worthy. We cannot say that we are speaking within a book of love whenever we are actually speaking within a book of falsehoods. And perhaps this should just be chapter one of a series that I can do on this, that I can speak from, just given with my knowledge. As of course, this is something that I'm studying, and I'm looking for materials here. Now, there was some things that I did want to pick up. Now, one of the most recent editions. Now, this is for my casual reading. It's called Jesus Land: Stories from the Upside Down World of Christian Pop Culture by Joel Kidd. I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Honestly, it's going to be good. I just have a feeling about it. And then I had before picked up this one. It's the Wesley Study Bible. Now, of course, John Wesley was a person of remarkable faith, and his story on how he came to be within the acts of faith, I really appreciate it because it helps give some perspective and background. And of course, he was a person that believed that music was definitely something central to the way of Methodist teaching. And of course, because of the political alignment within religious denominations, there has been a separation because of a lot of those mistranslations, revisions, and rewritings within the work of the original text of the Bible. So, reading upon this and gives you a little bit of text and background. And honestly, like I feel like unless it is before the age of the first King James Bible written in I believe it came out 1611, it was a broader version of a DEI Jesus. I know, how dare I must be so radical and woke. How dare I? I'm basically one of those conspirator Democrats, right? Yeah, I don't identify under any of those alignments. So let me stop you there before you start making presumptions. Here we go. So I was looking for, I didn't know what I was looking for. I was looking for whatever I was meant to be. So I have now come upon the book of Psalm. We're going to look at 78. Listen, my people, to my teaching. Tilt your ears toward the word of my mouth. I will open my mouth with a proverb. I'll declare riddles from days long ago, from days. Oh, I'm looking ahead and reading at the same time. It doesn't work. Okay. Hmm. I'll declare riddles from days long gone, ones that we've heard and learned about, ones that our ancestors told us. We won't hide them from their descendants. We'll tell the next generation all about the praise due the Lord and his strength. We'll praise and we will honor and acknowledge our ancestors. We will speak with them the truth of the word. It is incredible how one can say this is merely coincidence that I came upon this, or if you are within the belief that we are actually meant to be guided at times into things. I'm getting a little piece of paper for a bookmark here. Then you will see that this is not merely coincidence. Let's look here. Where are they going? All right, so 78, and we're going down to 7. To put their hope in God, never forgetting God's deeds, but keeping God's commandments, and so that they won't become like their ancestors, a rebellious, stubborn generation, a generation whose heart wasn't set firm and whose spirit wasn't faithful to God. That really feels like it speaks true to what's happening within our world right now. I was recently told that someone wouldn't that my words would probably fall upon deafened ears because well, and that's my translation of that, but basically because I didn't write where my political alignment was whenever I spoke my words. Mm-mm. All right, we're going to go down to Psalm 78:17. But they continued to sin against God, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They tested God in their hearts, demanded food for their stomachs. They spoke against God. Can God set a dinner table in the wilderness? They asked. True. God struck the rock and the water gushed and the streams flowed. But can he give bread too? Can he provide meat for his people? When the Lord heard this, he became furious. A fire ignited against Jacob. Wrath also burned against Israel because they had no faith in God, because they didn't trust his saving power. God gave orders to the skies above, opened heaven's doors, and rained manna on them so they could eat. He gave them every grain of heaven. You know, this is teaching us belief. We need to speak with one another. We need to not separate ourselves from one another. And we need to most ultimately love one another. And if we put this as a political alignment, separating ourselves from person against person, we will only diverge further than where we should be, which is within alignment of one another. Okay. Secondly, with thinking of more biblical texts like Bibles, actually. So this one is the Bible, A Global History by Bruce Gordon. I have been piecing through this so far, looking at different passages in here, and I really appreciate it. Now, what we're missing and what we're lacking, I definitely feel, is the understanding of how this has been translated over time and history of humanity. And keep in mind, humanity is only as capable as to what is able to do. And whenever we individually take liberties to translations, like King James, uh, then we honestly open a doorway to greater hurt that separates, that divides the original word of God and the text, and how basically think of this as a guidebook on how to love one another and how to be kind to one another. Jesus went off within the wilderness to basically find himself. He went on a little spiritual retreat. There were temptations within the world. There were hardships within the world, just like Buddha did. Siddhartha, he traveled and he actually took all those worldly possessions and he went and he followed. There are verses within the Bible that are basically telling us to leave our worldly positions, to become hateful towards our parents and love only Jesus or love only God. These translations from way back when, I feel, are ultimately something that I want to look into as well, just to see what the original text was saying, because written within Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and then we're going to take it over to English somehow, and we're not going to lose the original text. I mean, back in 1535, 1560 is definitely my favorite, but now I've just got to look back to this 35 version. I feel like that is one of the closest representations. And yes, that was an old English. That's why you get what looks like U's instead of V's and an extra E here. And it can sound very difficult to understand. But the thing is that actually is a good thing, because it can challenge us to actually hear what the original word was being said and how we are supposed to receive the message, as opposed to how we translate it into ourselves to fit where we are within our life, what we believe in, who we align with, and to justify, in a sense, our Book of Falsehoods decisions and the actions that we take. Because if done so within mistranslation, of revisions within history, of humankind, in 1611, instead of having a broad view of the Bible and what it actually more represents within the teachings of Jesus, of the new, within that New Testament, to show us how to love one another, those are words that are actually inspired and taken from Buddhism and Hinduism, a spiritual way of life rather than rules for living. Ultimately, it's being a humanitarian, caring for the world that you come from, and loving one another. That is what the Book of Love is. If that does not make you comfortable, then that's great. You were here for the discussion, and there's a reason why you found this space today. Within the context of this book, they're just talking about some things that I'm just so excited to read about. The Book of Life, Medieval Worlds, the manifestation of the Savior, the King James Bible. There's a whole chapter of just that. And then the American Bible, the different missions worldwide, African voices. And then it ends with a world without end. I am absolutely excited to dive in and to read this book. I'm going to put this back underneath my shelf here. And then I have this other book that I had borrowed. I haven't started to read it yet. I'm starting to bite off a little more than I can chew as far as my books are. But this one's called Landscapes of the Soul. Hold on. That little stickers hide in my information to be helpful for you. There we go. CYD Side. Apologies for names. I feel like I can say it in my head, but then it tries to come out and then I mistranslate. Geoff Holsclaw. Forward by, is it Jim or Tim? Tim Wilder. I think that's what it is. How the science and spirituality of attachment can move you into confident faith, courage, and connection. Landscapes of the Soul. This here, this should be hopefully delightful to read. And then I'm also reading another book in a book club that I am. I'm going to be picking up another. It's more of an audio series. It doesn't seem like we have to have the book for this one, but it's absolutely fascinating. And to first talk about rain and the effects of, and then the dust, where we come from, our roots, that is remarkable. That is amazing. And that is what we need to be talking about, the foundation. Because, my dear friends, we have done something to our foundation, and all of a sudden we are not where we need to be. What has happened? And as I record this, I realize that, on my phone, it's like, oh, you need to create more shorts. You don't have enough followers to do a live stream. So I don't even know if this is actually going to work today from my computer. It's more convenient in a sense, but whenever I have some of the most inspirational words that I just want to share, uh, or just even share about my thoughts and the view in life and what's happening within the world, to share my music, to share my poetry, to share my writing. It's not always conveniently placed where I'm going to be in front of my computer. So we'll see how well this shares. But I think I want to just cut this short because the Book of Love and the Book of Falsehoods are two very different things. One speaks on compassion, and the other speaks on a very individualized type of system. Mm. And with current assassinations that have happened within our world, and my heart pours out to the family, to the loved ones, to the children, the deaths of so many children that have occurred this year, all due to the pridefulness that we have about the things that we say are there for self-defense. But whenever you use a tool as a toy, it becomes a weapon. And clearly, things need to be done in regard to that. What I find is hurtful upon my heart are the mistruths that have been told now over generations. Since 1611, there's been this perpetual shift within the way we communicate. And of course, there have been many different structures that have built and have fallen because unless we listen to the ancestors of our time, we are, in a sense, doomed to repeat until we finally learn. And that is within a concept of Buddhism that I've appreciated within rebirth. Have you ever had anybody talk to you about reincarnation before? Well, in a sense of Buddhism, you have this life to be able to live. And until you finally reach that state of nirvana, that spiritual, awakenedness that helps us walk within the kingdom of heaven while we are actually alive and living on earth. It is a spiritual uplift, a loving heart, an embraceful spirit, basically living in the way as well as speaking within the way, that of Jesus, those of our spiritual followers who, yes, they have been the first to say of their imperfections. The people that are inspiring to us and we aspire to be like, all written within the Book of Love. That is truly incredible. Excuse me for just one moment. Excuse me. So yeah, Jesus was radical. He was pretty far out there. He was like basically a born and raised hippie. He didn't abide, just like the dude. And he wanted to tie the whole room together with peace, love, and harmony. Let's find our metaphorical rug and let's just tie the room together. Clearly, we need to have something that we are connected on. And let us set aside our own ego and pride and self-preservation and just actually think upon the ways of people within our past, our ancestors, the eras and generations before us that acted within light and love, to compassionately be there for one another, not to go, oh, you're dirty. Okay. Well, where's your oh, you're one of those homeless people. Or to hoard our money and our cash and not give freely to help someone in need. Yes, I understand being able to financially take care of yourself, but there's a greater division now within our world than there ever has been. At least it feels like that. And that's not how it should be. We should be within the lines to be able to help and nurture and care for one another, not to further separate. So now that I feel like I know what I want to deliver here within the book of love and the book of falsehoods, I hope that I can embrace this new format of communication and hopefully um, get people to join me in the future during my chats. And as I check my calendar that's popping up on my watch here, I have more things to do on my to do today. So I'm going to have to end this for now. Uh, as awkward and as stumbling as it was within the beginning, I feel like now I've reached a moment where I'm more comfortable. And yes, my surroundings aren't the most dressed up or gorgeous. Whenever you have life in chronic conditions that make it difficult, like with my fibromyalgia and my other chronic ailments that are just ever present within me, um, you prioritize what's most important in your life. And for me, it's within the preservation so that I can continue to do what I would like to do, and that is be there for other people. I feel a great calling, and I always have been, to speak within generations and ancestors of all walks and shapes and forms of life. I don't want to discriminate just because a person thinks or believes differently than myself. And thy enemy is thy friend. Yes, if we speak a certain way, then we should believe in that certain way and we should act in it to be the change we need to see and need to live within our world. Then we need to not judge one another, lest we judge ourselves, because that actually speaks more heavily upon ourselves whenever we are placing judgment upon other people just because they are different than us. I wish you all love and peace and hope, and that this live stream actually works from the computer, do its magic stuff, and I will speak with you later. My love and my heart is with all who are grieving and mourning, who are fearful of what could be due to the distancing disconnection within our world. And dear God, may our hearts open to one another. May we love one another. And may we take the patience to hear one another so that we may heal. Thank you for everything that we may teach one another in order to go forth as what has been written in the book of love and not within the book of falsehoods. In your name we pray. Thank you. Amen. Take care, friends. Until we meet again.